I would like to say good afternoon to everybody and thank you for taking the time to join us on this event. Okay, I'm here actually representing the Membership, Youth and Events Committee of PAM as the co-chair. And our chair lady is Alice, who I will pass the camera to shortly. So, but first of all, maybe just allow me to give a very short introduction to all the participants about the nature of this virtual tour this afternoon. So basically, we came up with this idea middle of the year to do an event in the depths of the pandemic, and we thought a good idea would be to have a virtual tour. So this is the first of a series. I will do a full introduction later. So I would like to hand over maybe to our chair lady, Alice, to do the officiating of the event. Alice?
Thank you, Architect Shafiq, and very good afternoon to all of you, and annyeonghaseyo to our friends in Korea. My name is Architect Alice Leong. Currently is the honorary treasurers of the Potobang Architect Malaysia, as well as the chairman of the Membership, Youth and Events Committee. So today I'm honored to be here to deliver my short welcome remarks here. So ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thank you to all the participants for taking your time to be with us today. As mentioned by Architect Shafiq, today's virtual tour is actually featuring our honorable invited guest, SAMOO Architects from Seoul, Korea. And this is the first in a series of the exciting, which will include small, medium, and large local and internationally architectural practice virtual tour. Of course, this is organized by the NYE committees of the PAM. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the three key architect speakers from SAMOO that they will lead us through their tour. And they are Dong Hun Kim, Chan Sun Choi, and as well Kali Dong. So thank you again for accepting this wonderful collaboration with PAM Malaysia. And also, I would really like to express my great appreciations and big thanks to our three sponsors who truly gave us their full support for this event, especially in these extremely tough times of pandemics. And they are Sushma Building Technology Sdn Bhd, Tri-Eye Concept Sdn Bhd, and as well as Jordan Payne Malaysia Sdn Bhd. So ladies and gentlemen, we know that the coronavirus have changed the way we travel now today. I'm pretty sure of that. And what is a new normal way to allow us to travel in a world of so-called COVID-19? So this day, people would usually celebrate by, heading outdoors, might need to rely on the virtual a lot by that. So this will actually fit for the opportunity to experience the technology change that some experts have actually advanced and eco-friendly solutions to the problems of so-called over-tourism from the past. So with about like 90% of the world under a travel restrictions, many would be actually venture turning into the virtual tour, which we are doing today. So the potential of various of technologies have eased all of us, especially in for those who really go for sustainable. You ease down to cut down the carbon footprints by a lot, as well as you create more cleaner air as well as water. So the virtual tour may never replace our traditional way of travel, but they're still offering a lot of possibilities. So as such, I think the virtual tour brings part of the world to people who are physically unable to travel certain landmarks, as well as for those who actually have the symptoms of flight shamings or whatever. So this resolve. So we can see that the virtual tour slowly come to many of the industry, includes our build industry. So hence, ladies and gentlemen, so last but not least, I must express my thank you again to my co-chair, Architect Shafiq, for accepting to lead this program. And of course, it's assisted by one of our NYE committee, Architect Ziyi. Thank you for both of them. Of course, we must not forget the people who work hard behind the screen for this entire preparation for this event. So of course, thank you to our PAM NYE project officers, direct speakers who help us to run through all the digital platform, as well as the crew from SAMOO Architects. So without further ado, I shall end my speech here.
Time passes. Time flows. Time never stops. But what if we could change that? Erase the traces of the past. Heal the wounds. Reverse the disruption. Let history, nature, and ideas live forever. And leave them to the next generations, beautiful as they are. Or what if we could see the future? Travel thousands of miles in a few seconds. Explore the possibilities that life might come up with. We can do it all. Stop it, bend it, rewind it. We are the masters of time. We want some things to change, and some to stay just the way they are. Jotun, for iconic buildings and beautiful homes.
Okay, I'd like to wish a good afternoon again to all of those who have just joined us. And a very quick introduction. So I will be your moderator today, and I'll be joined by Ms. Architect Zhe as the co-moderator. Okay, and just a very quick explanation on the rationale of why we decided to arrange this series of virtual tours. I think it's a very good opportunity for us to actually sort of compare and contrast between local and international practices, and also compare and contrast between large and small practices. And I think that this is it's a great opportunity, and we're very grateful that SAMOO has agreed to be our first participant for the tour. So I would personally like to thank Mr. Choi from the KL office, who has been instrumental in actually helping me to organize, helping myself and Zhe to organize this together with the PAM MYE committee. Also to Mr. Justin, his associate in KL, and all the participants in Seoul, Korea, SAMOO. Thank you very much for taking us to this point today. So I would like to hand over maybe to my co-moderator to add a little bit on the event today, please, Zhe.
Thank you, Architect Shafiq. My name is Zhe. I'm here today as the co-moderator to assist Shafiq as well as Architect Alice. First of all, I would like to thank you, SAMOO, for being here today to show us around your office in Seoul as well as in KL. So we are very delighted to have SAMOO as our first PAM virtual tour to the architectural practices. SAMOO is one of the biggest architectural practice in Asia, and then with the similar background and the context in terms of our Asian working culture, I believe that we can learn a lot from them and from their sharing today. So I hope that you all will enjoy the virtual tour today and then continue to supporting us in carrying this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zhe. Okay, so without further ado, I think the main event, we will hand over to SAMOO to talk us through their tour. Thank you very much. Hand over to SAMOO.
Hello. Yes, so let me introduce first in the KL office. So, thank you for today invite us. So this kind of is very meaningful meeting, especially this is kind of the organization when meeting. But we are just one architecture firm. But today, as one of the biggest architecture firm of Korea, we will try to explain what kind of a little bit different on the how can we manage all together. And our employees around now 650, but compared to the fiscal revenue, our member is a little bit smaller than other company. One of the reason is we really focusing kind of the collaboration work with together, kind of a lot of the issue project in case we have to contract not only for the architect and engineer side, but also kind of the very detailed coordinate with such as with the test company or some vertical transportation or some it's not every happen project, but some specific project we needed to collaboration with some more detailed engineers. So it's come up with all together, and then it's much more powerful, a good delivery, and then good architecture solution we can provide. So today is very is so happy to show us that kind of the processing. Yeah, thank you, Shafiq.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. And obviously, thank you for this opportunity to host a virtual tour of SAMOO headquarters in Seoul. So we'll show the slides of the introduction. So as mentioned before, thank you very much for this great opportunity for the PAM virtual tour. And as mentioned before in the greetings, our KL office, Mr. Chair and Mr. Yang has worked closely with PAM to organize this event. And obviously from outside headquarters, we have Mr. Kang, myself, Mr. Won, and Ms. Kelly Dion, who is participating for this event. And as a general introduction, obviously, in the first portions, we will cover some of our introductions to our firm and some of our projects that we have conducted. And in the later portion, we have prepared some video of introducing how we work and the environment, the office that we actually work on. And obviously, it will be followed up by the interviews that we have prepared. So to start out with the introduction, as mentioned before, SAMOO Architects and Engineers, we are the architectural design firm within the Samsung Group. And obviously, we have a lot of branches around the world. And the Malaysian office that we have in KL is one of the largest office and one of the most significant office, because it's actually the regional headquarters for all of the projects that is conducted, not only in Malaysia, but also for Singapore, including Vietnam, Myanmar, and Cambodia, all the regional areas as well. And obviously, we have some overseas branches in Hungary as well as the United States, because we do have a lot of projects in these locations as well. The total number of our staff at SAMOO is approximately 700. And almost approximately 400 or so are actual architects, and the other 200 would be admin or supporting staffs. And it's not just a single one roof solution, but we actually have not only architects, but also engineers for structural, mechanical, electrical, and all the other disciplines as well. So we're always able to provide a holistic solution to any problems that we encounter during the projects. As mentioned before, we are ranked as #1 in Korea, and in some areas such as industrial and semiconductor fields, we rank up to global #6. And within South Korea, we were one of the first firms to actually receive all of the 3 prestigious global design awards, which is nominated as the Red Dot Award, the IF Design Award, and also the IDEA Award. So it was a very prestigious moment for us. And some of the areas that we have tried to focus on is that when we conduct the projects, it comes out that a global collaboration in which not only the architects, but also the SMAP disciplines and also the client side, the stakeholders, the construction side, coming together to actually plan out and design and work towards a better future. That has always been one of the focus areas of our firm. And because of these backgrounds, obviously some of the recent initiatives that our firm is very interested is actually the smart city initiatives. Because around the world, we see a trend of mega cities emerging, and we see a lot of opportunities to solve the problems that it encounters, whether it be population, infrastructural, or actual sustainable problems as well. And through these initiatives, the areas that our firm has recently focused our study would be the data collection, whether it be sensing of the data that is actually used by the users within an architectural building. And also we have created some of the platforms where we gather the GIS information and then using those information, cater it towards an architectural solution. So within our firm, we actually have a separate team that actually works on these GIS or big data, data-driven information technologies. And throughout these GIS and big data, we are trying to cater to the needs of the clients, whether it be the sustainable aspects, whether it be infrastructural. And one of the areas that we have also tried to focus is utilizing InfraWorks. This is actually a program provided by Autodesk, but it actually allows us to integrate all of the ideas or data so that we can quickly come up with a solution to any of the projects that we encounter, regardless of its location, because the GIS information is actually provided around the world. One of the most recent projects that we are very interested is, this is an actual project that is under construction and will be completed towards the end of this year. And what's very interesting is that this urban setting of approximately 40 houses, all of the smart sensors have been integrated into the houses. And this is a project that is being developed by one of the Korea water companies. And the interesting thing is that the people who live in this housing units, they don't have to pay for any rents up to 5 years. The only resource that they pay to the developer is the data that is actually being collected within these units. So these kind of data-driven initiatives are one of the high points of our projects. And within the same projects, we are collaborating with MIT, one of the sensible city labs, so that we can collect these data, analyze it, and come up with additional solutions. And obviously, we're utilizing a lot of the digital tools to simulate and come up with some simulation data-driven solutions as well. And one of the key aspects and one of the interesting points about SAMOO Architects and Engineers is that we always initiate and we are always involved in mega-scale projects. One of the most recent one is obviously the Incheon Airport Terminal 2, the Dongdaemun Design Plaza, which was actually designed by Zaha Hadid, and then the LCT, the shop Haeundae, which is a high-rise, multi-use, mixed-use residential tower. So within this presentation, from outside, I plan to give a short presentation on Incheon Airport as well as the Haeundae LCT high-rise towers. So the first project would be the Incheon Airport Terminal 2. And if you visit Korea by any chance, this is the actual aerial photo of Incheon Airport as it is right now. So at the very far end, you see Terminal 1, and in the middle, you have Concourse A. And what you see on the middle of the photo is actually Terminal 2, but only half of it being built. So this is the condition that has been opened in 2018. And before the opening of Terminal 2, Incheon Airport actually came out with a plan to actually quick start the design and construction of the next expansion, which will be followed in the following pages. So compared to the picture that you saw in the previous page, obviously a much larger expansion. This is actually called phase 4 of Incheon Airport. And with this expansion, the Incheon Airport will become one of the largest single mega terminals in the world. As you can see on the slides, this over here is Terminal 1. You have Concourse A in the middle, and our project is actually on this northern area, expanding T2 to its final phases. So within Incheon Airport, there's multiple phases, and obviously our work scope was for phase 4, and they're currently doing the construction work even during the COVID-19 pandemics, because they have a strong belief that this pandemic will be over within a few years. So obviously, as you can see on the screen, it will be one of the largest single mega terminals in the world. And around the terminal, there will be a lot of different codes for the aircraft. So planning for one of these airport terminals is always one of the special areas, and it has to be closely collaborated between the airport planners, the architects, and the users of the airports. And these kind of geometries that we have come up with is always collaborated and interrelated with other disciplines as well. Obviously, within the check-in hall, we've always strived to come up with a very bright and welcoming space. And even within the terminal, we have created areas for people's gathering so that they can rest and enjoy the cultural events before taking their flights to their destination. And also one of the first attempts in Korea is that unlike the airport in Kuala Lumpur, which I believe that they have an actual garden in the middle, it's a first try for an airport in Korea to actually have an outdoor garden within the airport terminal. So this is one of the first attempts that we're trying in Terminal 2. So within the airport and within the terminal, there'll be an actual outdoor garden that is actually a platform and a stage for other cultural events, and also cater to some of our traditional spaces that you can see in traditional Korean architecture. Within the terminal, obviously for the arrival passengers, we have a corridor which is delighted with some multimedia performances and lightings. Also for the baggage claim hall. And for the welcoming hall, which is the area that you arrive at, we actually try to integrate the flight information display system, the screens, within the architectural interior walls as well. So we have a great space, which is not only full of information, but also very pleasing to have a look at. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously we were within the design phase when the pandemic started to take place. So we tried to optimize some of the areas within the terminal so that if there is a flight with some COVID-19 patient, that patient and the flight could be isolated and then treated and tested before actually being arriving at the airport itself. So we have a dedicated facility, we call it the remote boarding facility. If an airplane is actually contacted with a patient within the airplane during the flight, then obviously this airplane will not be taken to the terminal, but actually into one of these remote boarding facilities where they will depart, deplane the airplane and then be taken to a separate specialized facility where they can run tests and treatments for all of the passengers within that flight. And because of the smart technologies that we are seeing, whether it be self-check-ins, self-security checks, or actual movements within the passenger terminal, we have robots and AI working around the time with connectivity to the airport itself. And obviously, we've also worked with a lot of media installations, art installations to bring out a better airport. Some sustainable facilities on the facades, and not just the building itself, but within the building, we see a lot of additional interior furnitures and lightings and other elements. And we've tried to integrate all of those components into a single design language. So whenever people goes within the terminal, all of the design and colors are matched into a united identity. And obviously, one of the highlights of an airport terminal is the baggage system, because the baggage system is one of the backbones of an airport terminal. And we have collaborated with a lot of the vendors as well as the design engineers for the baggage handling, because that is a huge part of the airport terminal itself. And moving on to the second project is the Haeundae LCT. This is one of the most recently constructed high-rise residential tower. This was collaborated not only within ourselves, but this was actually collaborated with KPF of the United States and then also SOM of United States as well.
Yeah.
So these are some of the photos that we see. The upper portions with the helipads and also some of the entrance areas for the main areas. And it was not just a high rise by itself, but one of the challenges of these kind of projects is the fact that it has not only a tower for the residential, but if you look at the podium itself, it has abundance of retails and also a water park on top of it. So a collaboration between all of these stakeholders, it was a very challenging task. And a lot of the people that participating from SAMOO, Mr. Chen, Mr. Yang, and Mr. Won, a lot of us has been collaborating on this project as well. This is a view that you can see from the beach of Haeundae, Busan. So the first three floors are for retails. You have a water park on top of it. And even within the residential towers, we have residential tower 1 and 2. And also on the right side, we have a landmark tower, which on the bottom portion is actually a hotel facility. So this is one of the truly mixed use mega projects that we have recently completed in Korea. This is a view of the water park that you see on top of the podium. And obviously it has a great view within the Haeundae Beach, which is one of the most popular tourist attraction sites within Korea. So if there's any chance to come to Busan, obviously you'll have a chance to look at these facilities as well. Now, within the buildings, obviously, this is one of the living rooms that we see. And it's not just about the ocean views, but we cater to the different unique demands of the client side as well. For example, the dining area, the bathroom, restroom areas, and even within the bedrooms, as you can see, we have integrated some of the folding doors because the climate in Korea during the summer, it becomes very hot, but then during the winter, it becomes extremely cold as well. So we came up with these kind of solutions where you could maximize the view with an open folded door, but then during the winter, when it becomes cold, we can utilize these double doors for added insulations. And obviously some of the corner views of the bedroom, which has a great view of the oceans as well. So this was the introduction of the two projects, the mega projects that we have conducted in Seoul, and we'll hand it over to Justin Yang from our KO office for additional experiences in Malaysia.
Let's move on to the next page. That is the one of the SAMOO proposed here in the 2018. This is the just the client want to propose idea is just give us the just a 10 days time period. But as I comment earlier, and we try to adapt some special technique to each project. So as you can see, this building is the residential, but all of the facade is we tried to add one more layer. That is to give us the natural lighting, a little bit dimming, and then can help to the energy saving effect altogether. Next. Oh yeah, that is the podium portion, and then the podium portion is the retail plus some the car park, and above that is the residential tower, and then yes. You can see that this is the kind of the ladder, and then how can the error can come in, and how can see inside to outside, and then and also client want to suggest us how can reasonable kind of the cost down, and we propose several options. But unfortunately, this project is not keep moving because of the FAR. The city is not approved at that kind of a certain level. So now we are just waiting for this project. Yes, so now is, and our technical team also calculate how much all of the energy can absorb or how can reflect. So kind of the effect we just analyze, and certain level we set up for the facade. And inside there is the unit layout. So within just the short period, we proposed each unit the basic layout. Yeah, that is the main lobby area. Next one also close to KL, but it's a little bit the northwest Rawang area. This is one of the shopping mall plus the theme park altogether. Client also want some spacious feeling into this shopping mall. So we proposed seamless connect to all of the outdoor shopping mall, outdoor entertainment to go into the Aurora here. It's called Aurora here. So it's the 3 steps. Phase 1 is much more focusing in the center, and then Phase 1 east, from the west to the east, it's 3 steps and then can be developed. Yeah, this one is each 4 focal point. We make some event plaza. That is one of them is the energetic programs we just put in, and then kind of the focal point and then image. Next one is another in the floating area, and then the people's gathering, some using library or some skating or outdoor the waving pool. And then next one is another the image shot for this shopping mall. Now is one of the new trend at Korea, and the shopping mall is not only for the shopping, and then they try to give another entertainment. So that means outdoor some activities like this image. Yeah, there are 4 for the focal point. One is Aqua Cube, the other is Healing Cube, the other event. Next one is Knowledge Cube. Yeah, that is in general the perspective for the project. And the next image. But couple months later, clients change their mind, and then they demand us another testing, especially for facade, and then some traditional old image. So it's called, they want Victoria images. So we just converted from the exactly same program to the different building. So it's called Victoria. And this is the similar the program. And the next page is what kind of the different from the previous. Now is much more activity, but also it's kind of the old traditional images. Expose some the structure and then climbing image, and then next page is more old building style. And then next one is the previous 2 project is kind of the design phase only we propose. Both of is not the continuous, but this one is the luckily we can finish it all together with Shafik Jaman around 2016 to 17. This is the Desa Park Residence 5 project. Recently, this is the construction award as we know. And then there is the left above image is the lobby, and then the right side is the swimming pool image, and then below right is the community area. But yeah, next page. One of the why clients want to kind of the foreign architect involved in this project, and then you know the Seoul is very populated the city, and then we developed a lot of the condo kind of the apartment project, and also we used to where how can squeeze down small size the unit to can enjoy the kind of the large size unit. So we just split more detailed program putting together with Shopee. Yeah, that is the each unit the floor plan, and next one is perspective from the Desa Park, out of the Desa Park. Then next page. Residential 2 is the 2 years later we can get another project, and then this is the residential 2 in Desa Park, and that also we collaboration with Shafiq Jaman. And this is the podium level for parking garage, and then connected to the horizontally to the main condo area. Yeah, that is the above the podium, and then how can we explain to the community area? That also image shot of that, and then next page is, yeah, that is the unit layout too. Another project is to just quickly explain that another, this is the Putraja Residence Tower. This is now is the permit processing is done, not yet the, and then construction company is the selected, and then maybe next year will be started these projects. And then, yeah, that is the whole town of the Putrajaya, and the right end, the building is our proposal. And then this is, yeah, another the image shot. Let's move on. So last 3-4 years, we are focusing, we get a lot of the residential projects. So most of this case is the residential condo. And yeah, that also Putrajaya residence, and from the outside, from the highway view. Yeah. Next one is as we comment, the now KL office is not the full scope the office. So partially design, marketing side is main, or headquarter most of the design work, and then we are coordinate together. And then another important job is the construction side we can support. So KL 118 and SAPRA headquarters, both of the building in KL. That is SAMOO Architects also join together, and on the site collaborate with the construction firm, and we are working all together. Okay. Yeah, that is Malaysia. Yeah.
Thank you for the introduction to the projects in the KL office. And obviously, we'll start with the virtual tour. And obviously, the first virtual tour would be the office that we have in SAMOO headquarters in Seoul. And we've prepared a short video that walks through some of the major areas. So we'll have that video up on the screen.
안녕하세요. 저는 이번에 사무오 종합건축사사무소 신입으로 들어온 정윤명 프로라고 합니다. 사무오 종합건축사사무소를 소개시켜 드리려고 하는데요.
저는 2021년
No, we cannot see image. Yeah.
Alex, we couldn't see the video just now.
안녕하세요. 저는 이번에 사무오 종합건축사사무소 신입으로 들어온 정윤명 프로라고 합니다. 사무오 종합건축사사무소를 소개시켜 드리려고 하는데요.
저는 2021년 사무설계 신입사원 이지은입니다. 여기가 바로 사무설계가 있는 건물입니다.
여기는 사무건축의 로비 겸 라운지입니다. 20층에 위치해 있고요. 여기 보시면은 저희의 자랑스러운 프로젝트들이 한눈에 펼쳐져 있는 것을 확인할 수가 있으십니다.
여기 보이시는 이 건물이 바로 네이버 그린 팩토리고요. DDP입니다. 사무건축은 굉장히 훌륭한 건물을
Sorry, Alex. Can you put it on full screen?
건축 사무소입니다. 이렇게 QR코드를 인식하시면 지금 서 있는 저희 로비 공간을 VR로 보실 수 있습니다.
저희 사무가 그리고 저희가 자랑하는 최고의 뷰가 있고요. 지금 회의 중인 것 같아요. 저희가 이렇게 수많은 책들이 있는 도서관이 있는데 여기는 대학교 도서관 수준으로 건축 책들이 많습니다. 이 공간은 언제나 열려 있어서 사무 사람들이 머리를 식힐 수 있을 때 방문하는 그런 열린 도서관 시스템입니다.
복도를 따라 여기 보이는 이 책장에는 건축책뿐만이 아니라 여행 관련 책이나 인문학 책들 이렇게 다양한 분야의 책들이 있어요. 제목이 되게 마음에 드는 건데 머리가 좀 복잡할 때 이 정리하는데 이 책을 보면은 왠지 정리가 될 것 같습니다.
이 공간은 사무의 역사가 담긴 공간입니다. 여기는 저희 통합 빔룸이라는 곳인데 이곳에서는 VR 등 최첨단 기술로 건축을 구현해 놓은 그런 곳입니다.
이런 바닥재질이나 그다음에 여러 가지 난간 재질 같은 것들을 변경하면서
이게 실제로 보니까 저희가 흔한 렌더링이나 모델링 프로그램에서 느낄 수 없게 진짜로 실제 공간을 마주한 것 같아요. 여기는 사무 사람들이 디자인 역량을 항상 이끌어내기 위해서 저희가 공모전을 실시하는데 거기에 있는 작품들입니다. 우리 이런 걸 열심히 해서 우리도 여기 이름 달아야지, 그지? 인테리어 서적들과 샘플들이 이곳에 위치하고 있습니다. 수많은 마감들 그리고 석재 재료가 되게 많네. 자, 너 여기 21층 있지?
여기는 21층이고요. 경계 없는 도전, 미래건축 혁신이다. 2층에는 주택설계본부, 그리고 1본부, 그리고 ENG 팀이 있고요. 보이시는 이 공간은 지금 여러 여러 선배님들이 일을 하고 있고요. 이렇게 열심히 일을 하시고 계십니다. 오시리아 TF룸입니다. 여기 보시면 모형들이 있는데 저는 요즘 그 핵심 공간인 와우를 스터디하고 있고요. 이게 제가 만든 모형이고 간단한 스터디 모형을 만드는 그런 작업 공간입니다. 이렇게 열선이 있어서 이렇게 메시 스터디도 할 수 있고
디자인들을 현실화시킬 수 있으니까. 그렇죠.
오전에 인쇄 걸어놓은 게 있는데 나왔는지 확인해 볼까요? 색도 잘 나오고
네, 여기는 대망의 사장님실입니다.
저희도 처음 오는
네.
곳입니다.
그래서 이번 기회에 한번 탐험을 한번 해보겠습니다. 수많은 혁신들이 이루어지고 있는 23층입니다. 제가 있는 이 미래도시 전략팀이 이곳에 있습니다. 여기는 미래도시 전략팀입니다. 저 신입사원의 자리인데 그래서 이런 것들도 좀 챙겨 먹으면서 열심히 혁신적인 전략을 짜고 있습니다.
So that was the introduction of our firm via video. And these were also up on the video screen, but one of our key areas that we have in our office is one of the lobby areas. As you can see, we have a huge seating areas where we can easily sit and collaborate and share ideas. One of the main features that we have is an actual scaled model where all of these buildings are some of our major projects that we have conducted. So these are on display at the lobby and the reception as well. And as mentioned in the video as well, we have a lot of architectural and design related books and magazines displayed within this lobby area as well. The auditorium that we have for hosting large-scale events. And we are also known for hosting a lot of open seminars and lectures for architectural students or architectural firms as well. And some of the areas within our office, obviously because of our huge reliance on digital tools, we have dual monitor setups. And actually, we're working hard to distribute workstation throughout our architects so that we can work easily on building information modeling. And during the pandemic, one of the policies that our HR department deployed was we actually came out with a statistical number, a target for some of the percentage of architects to be working at home so that we can lower the density of our office. Now, throughout the last year, I think there were maybe 3 or 4 instances where 1 or 2 people or architects within our firm was actually infected with COVID-19. But our strict policies on the COVID-19 prevention allowed us to limit any further contaminations from those specific individuals who were actually who actually got COVID-19 from other places and other conditions and not from our office. So we have these policies to protect not only our architects, but also our clients and customers as well. And as we are doing right now, we're relying heavily on Zoom, MS Teams, and Knox Messengers to collaborate with stakeholders so that we don't have any delays on the projects that we're conducting. And the next item obviously will be the SAMOO KL office. We also have prepared a short video that we would like to play and walk you through.
Yeah, SAMOO KL is located on the 39th floor of Manhattan City Bank. We share the corridor with Samsung C&T. Okay, approach, you see the reception and the resting area. And this is one of our pantry. And we are very lucky to have an open view. We can observe all those beautiful Kuala Lumpur city center, 180 degree. Right now, you see the small meeting area on the right side of our office, and there is the main workstation. On the wall, we framed one of our selected project. On this side of the wall, there is the work done by the HQ, and the other side of the wall, we framed the local Malaysia experience of project.
Okay, thank you for the tour. So coming up next will be the interviews of some of our key architects, and I'm very proud to introduce you to our first interview with Mr. Chang-Sun Che, who is the Regional Director of SAMOO KL office. And actually, this interview will be also followed by one of our architects who's working at our HQ office, Kelly Dion. And so without further ado, I hand it over to Mr. Che, who will be conducting the introduction as well as the interviews as well.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Already I explained a little bit for the company, the background, but luckily today, thank you for introducing myself. And then I joined the SAMOO Architects in 1994, and then worked more than 20 years in here. And then as you can see, the Haeundae LCT, there is 3 towers. One is 102-story, and the other 83, 84. That kind of the project, and then we start 2008 from the competition, and then design finished almost 6-7 years. For long period, I can finish that project with Justin Yang, and then a lot of the other staff, and then I can move to here around for 3 years, the Malaysia. So in Malaysia, and then with Shafiq Jaman or some other local architect, we developed a few residential projects in here and shopping mall the other. But even here is the marketing team, but some of the project, the meeting, we can join together because the me and Justin Yang also background is the architects. So we can collaborate with Malaysia or East Asia project all together. And that is briefly I explained to myself, and then toast to the Colin Leong. She joined 2 years ago from Korea. She graduated from the Korea, but she is Malaysian. Colin Leong, can you explain yourself?
Yes, this is Kelly, and currently I'm working at the SAMOO headquarters in Seoul. I came to Korea 8 years ago to study architecture, and I joined SAMOO straight after my graduation. I choose SAMOO because SAMOO is a company that owns a high reputation, not only in Korea, and also other countries, including Malaysia. I think that SAMOO has lots of opportunities in a diverse range of projects and also many challenging tasks to go on. One of the most memorable projects I work on is the Smart Construction Promotion Center 2, which will be the first modular office in Korea after completion. We use a full BIM system to finish the construction documents and detailed 3D drawings from a small module to the whole building. Although there were difficulties, we were able to solve it efficiently in a given short time, thanks to BIM. It was my first practical experience, and I believe that there are more exciting projects waiting for me in future here in SAMOO. It is a great honor to have this opportunity to join this event today, and I really hope that we can have more collaborative relationship between Korea and Malaysia in not far future. Thank you and nice to meet you.
Thank you. And moving on to the last session will be the Q&A session. So if there's any questions towards SAMOO or one of our interviewers, then obviously we'll be very glad and happy to answer those questions.
Okay, Alex, thank you for the presentation and the virtual tour. I mean, personally, I think it's quite an eye-opener to see how essentially the #1 architectural practice in South Korea, how you operate, on various levels and the designs that you produce. So I think it's also good for the audience that they are able to compare and contrast with how local practice is executed in Malaysia. Of course, you are on a large scale, so it's one end of the spectrum. So for me, I think I have a lot of questions, but I believe that there are some questions which have already come in through the chat and as well as through the Q&A section of the Zoom presentation. Sorry, you can hear the lightning in the background because it's raining quite heavily in KL. So maybe perhaps we can actually take one of the questions from the chat, which is actually the first one which I came across, which it is actually asking you how do you deal with the design aspect of your projects in the event that you are acting as the design and build contractor? How do you mitigate between the architectural design sort of aspirations versus the client? Because in the event of a design and build, it is presumed that you are also the client, right? In a design and build situation. I'm not sure if I got that question absolutely correct, but I think that's the gist of it.
I think that's one of the most challenging aspects of many projects, actually, because within our firm, it's not only high budgeted, prestigious projects, but also very common projects as well. So we always have this collision between whether it should be design driven or whether we should focus more on the budget. But one of the most interesting aspects that we find from our collaboration, and one of our advantages of our firm, is because we have so many departments and so many projects and so many databases, we always go back through these data, and somewhere within those data, we find a solution where we could balance between the design aspects and also some of the budget and construction configuration. But then again, from our experiences, all of these projects that we do, it's based upon human interaction. So endless communication with the client, the stakeholders, the end users, and somewhere in between, we always strive to find the solution, although it might not be perfect. And obviously within nowadays, we focus more on the other aspects such as sustainability, the budget for not only the construction, but over the life cycle of the building as well.
Can I add some more? And then my feeling, once I moved to the Malaysia, and a little bit of different situation, the project delivery, Korea, and then I can explain. A certain, the size-wise or total construction cost-wise, a little bit higher in case most of the Korean client, they want to get even the design, they want to get from the competition. So, but here is the most of case, we just fee proposal plus a basic design idea. But in Korea case, the most of the big, in certain levels, the kind of the project is open tender. And then that means within, I think, 3 weeks to 2 months, and then we can just concentrate on that kind of a project. And then one architect, the client select. But even the client select the project, that is not the, of course, it's not the final design. So for like the LCT Hyundai case, even they select the SAMOO, and then we also trying to find another foreign architects, and then collaboration, almost monthly base, we produce the new design scheme. That means more than 100 design scheme after contract. So kind of the construction tender before, and then we developed for like the big project around it takes 2 years, 3 years kind of the period we can finish it. And then tender phase, that means the client select the client time, that times the all of the drawing we propose. And then once construction company select, and then we collaboration together, and then kind of the until DD phase drawing also we a little bit modify all together, and then is kind of the collaborate after that. But kind of the design build, that kind of a project is much more focusing or fast track project. So like the Samsung Semiconductor Factory or some other is really issue for the a certain milestone have to finish it, that kind of project, we collaboration early stage together. Or cost wise is very critical to match a certain number. That case, the client propose that kind of design delivery, and then we are working together with the construction company together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alex and Mr. Choi. I think I hope that answers the question. The question came from Zi Yong. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So thank you for answering that question. The way I understand it is, I think that what you're trying to say is that for the mega projects, the client involvement in design is not an issue because most of the projects are awarded via competitions, right?
Yes.
So once the client decides on the winning entry, I presume that the design is, there is very minimal intervention on the design because they've actually chosen or selected the design based on what they already prefer. So
yeah.
that is for the bigger scale and more design sensitive projects, right?
Yeah.
But on the fast track and the design and build types, then it's actually the other end of the scale whereby the design perhaps is not so sensitive in the sense of aesthetics, but is rather more budget driven and functional driven.
Yeah, and also here's the interesting part. And also for architects, is headache is another person, is kind of the PM group. And then PM CM group, they as a representative of the client, they also keep pushing us some kind of, especially for the budget or scheduling, they push to us. So all together, clients, architect, PM, CM group, and the construction, the site, all together, and then to make the single goal.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I hope that answers the question from the floor. Maybe I can let Z open up the next question, Z, which is actually from the Q&A board from Sim Chen Yan. Do you see the question, Z?
Yes. There's a question from Sim Chen Yan is asking. He said that there's a very interesting idea that architecture in the big data context that you have the SAMOO Korea has presented at the very beginning of the presentation. So may I know who will be managing and safekeep the data collected in the new development? And most of the firms are individual corporate, and how do everyone be able to share or utilize the data that has been collected?
The project that we introduced earlier, it's called Eco Delta City in Busan, and it's being developed by K Water Company. It's almost a half public company within Korea. The data collected is actually being collected by Samsung SDS, which is one of the IT information firms within Korea. And obviously, before the people actually start using the houses, we sign an agreement as to what data will be collecting. Obviously, we're not looking into any privacy issues, but more or less how much energy is being used, how much lighting is being used, and those kind of public informations. And those are stored in a secured server within Samsung SDS specifically for this project, and being analyzed and being shared with participants within the project. So this is one of the prototype projects that we are initiating. It will be completed towards the end of this year or early next year. And obviously, before the tenants actually move in, there will be a communication channel where we specify which kind of data will be collected, how it will be used, and be shared within those communities.
Okay, does that mean after you say until the end of the year, the end of the data collection, then after that, there will not be any data collected? I mean, it's like the system will be ceased by itself?
Oh, actually, the actual program itself is for 5 years of data collection. And after that, whether that data will be stored away or be deleted, that has to be, that's up for another discussion towards the end of the 5-year tenant period.
Okay.
So even during, while Samsung C&T is actually doing the construction of this project, we're continuously communicating with MIT, which is actually collaborating on this project, as to what kind of data and what data will be utilized, shared and stored as well. So that will be done towards the early phase of next year, right before the tenants move in.
It just happened that there's another questions by the participants, Min Wei Ho, and he was asking, can you elaborate more on how the data collected, the data science and the analytics part is used to inform your architectural design, and at what stage? How is the data collected? Is this done in-house? I think you have explained that it has been done through an IT company, and there is collaboration with the Samsung. Is there any further elaboration that you would like to share?
That is true. We're actually in progress of setting up all the sensors yet. But for example, I think one of the most easy examples would be, for example, within Samsung Electronics, they have a lot of appliances, whether it be air conditioning units or big screens, TVs or refrigerators. There will be a monitoring of how these appliances are being used, what time they're being used, how much it is being utilized. Those kind of energy related data, as well as how many people are moving within the community. Within the development phases, there are actually community facilities such as fitness centers. How much is being used by how many people during what time of the day. Those kind of data will be collected and be analyzed. And for the analyzing part, we haven't set up a specific party who will be doing the analyze, but obviously we're collaborating within SAMOO as well as MIT, as well as Samsung CNT and Samsung SDS on this project.
And then can I add one more thing is I also surprisingly using this kind of the big data, because the early stage, like the shopping mall, always architect and the clients, including developer, they are struggling. What kind of program we need? And also, I got the same kind of the struggling. How can we figure out some specific project? But that times we connected to the work, collaborate working with our internal team, like the urban planning team. They are using the big data. So they put the specific data like the location and the climbing or some kind of the economic condition for specific location. All of data from theirs, I was so surprised. They proposed to us some specific program like here needed to theme park, especially for the riding kind of the style is they required. So we are so helpful that kind of the using big data. So until that time, I'm not so much the interesting kind of big data. After that, I'm really focusing rely on their help. So especially for the initial phase.
Thank you, Mr. Chang, for your sharing. I hope they answer your question for this is from the Sim and Min Wei Ho. Okay.
Thanks, Z. I think at the moment, that's the extent of the questions from the floor. So I've got a couple of questions myself, but before I ask those questions, I don't know if, is there anyone else in the participatory audience who would like to ask more questions? Can you type it out in the Q&A section or even in the message section, the chat section? And if maybe while waiting for that to happen, I can ask, perhaps my question is again addressed. There seems to be a lot of interest revolving around the Busan Eco-Delta city, Alex, and I think I'm also quite interested to find out a little bit more. I think one of the questions that popped up in my head is that it is actually a very select number of units that you guys are building there, right? I think it's 50 you mentioned?
Yes, approximately 50 units.
And I find the premise is also very interesting, the fact that the inhabitants or the tenants are precluded from paying any rent, but instead they are required to gather data. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, that is correct.
It's very much an experimental project. So this kind of project, I think it's like a dream in a way, right, for architects, because it's very seldom that you get an entity willing to invest so much money and time into a project like this, which is targeted at collecting, specific data. My question is actually, how do they go about selecting the inhabitants? Are they made up of a specific a group of people? How are they pre-selected to?
Oh, actually, we have a separate process for, I'm not sure whether I can explain it right, but within South Korea, we have a separate system where people can apply to buy new houses. It's a public tender process that we have. And through these procedures, the K-Water company, which is almost a half public company, actually announced this project prior to the tender selections. People actually registered to these procedure sites. And I think the competition was quite high because obviously you get to live for up to 5 years without any rents. So there's a separate procedure for the selections of these people, and the data that they're collecting is not privacy related. It's more of a data driven. For example, at what time people, how many people comes in, how many people goes out, how many energy they uses. And one of the reasons why we try to collect these data is, for example, when we develop a condo with a community facility, how many cycles or how many tracks should we design for? We don't have any data on those kind of parameters. So this test bed will be one of those areas where we'll be able to capture some of these precious data that could be utilized by the public.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Thank you for that, Alex, because I mean, I think that's important because what it means is that the data that is collected in this kind of experiment, it's not biased, right?
Right.
Because the people are actually selected from a random base, right?
Yes, that is correct.
That's important for me to understand. Okay, maybe if there's no questions yet, I have another question. Actually, maybe this is for both Mr. Choi and Alex. I think it's because when you import your design knowledge from an extreme climate like in Korea, where you have the extremities of the cold and the heat and the hot, how do you adapt all the knowledge that you've accumulated in the design environment like in Korea and bring that over to a tropical place like Malaysia? Did you encounter any problems adapting the design knowledge that you have there and making it specific to this climate?
Right. For us to go first, I think one of our experiences is because we have overseas branches, we kind of share the knowledge between these branches in related to the climates of the locations of the projects. And for example, just right now, before this meeting, we were involved in a project that is being ongoing in the Philippines as well as the Vietnam. We try to utilize the data and the experience that is gathered by the branch office before applying it. And then again, one of the most critical is obviously communication, because whenever we conduct a project, whether it's in Korea or even overseas, we try to team up with a variety of experts, whether it's in architecture or SMEP. And then through workshops, we kind of collaborate on what the specific parameters must be done to these kind of conditions. So that's, as mentioned before, I think communication and collaboration was always the solution for these kind of problems that we can encounter depending on the locations and the climate of the project.
Yeah, it's true. And then and then we once we finish it, or once we get the contract with the client from some specific project, and then we really looking for the here's local good architects, because of the sharing all of the both sides of the information, and then have to negotiate because we didn't realize that kind of is important or not. For instance, Korea, for high-rise building case, the most important thing is stack effect. Stack effect means the elevator cannot open because from the ground level is very cold, and the top area and the heating is something the kind of the stack effect. So we cannot open the elevator. So kind of the 2-3 steps we have to the making the door, or for like the very heavy windy or earthquake, such a reason, and we have to develop the material contact for like a glass. But consider we have the triple glass or fourth kind of the layer glass. But when I moved to in the Malaysia, I was shocked because of no earthquake, and then even we don't need it kind of the double layer, but not only for the we rely on not only for the local architect, we also contact the here's local wind kind of the simulation team, and then get then probably this kind of is really big difference, and then we can subtract and then some idea from the all of collaboration together.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
maybe I have one more question before I pass it back to Z. And I'm not sure, there still don't seem to be any questions from the floor. So I have a question now, because obviously when we organize this tour is to try and gain as much knowledge as possible for the viewers, for the audience. And I think hopefully I represent the audience in the next question, because we've been asking you a lot about the specific projects and technicalities of design. But perhaps one of the interesting aspects of being able to talk to you guys now as being the big architect in Korea, how do you manage 700 people? You know, what is the organizational structure that you employ? You know, do you have various teams, groups, and are those teams then led by various directors? I mean, it may seem obvious, but I think it's the question that I need to ask.
very, very difficult answer. Can you answer to that first?
Well, going back history-wise, I think throughout the history, there's been a lot of changes to our organization number. For example, I think 5-6 years ago, our firm was up to 1,300 architects, and then at this moment, we're staying at 700. However, every year, towards the end of the year, we try to reorganize within ourselves the optimum structure for next year. So at this moment, for example, the architects that you see within our SAMOO headquarters office at this moment, we belong to Studio 3. One studio is actually comprised of up to 50 architects, and we have approximately maybe 5 or 6 of those in Seoul, and we have another huge division called high-tech division down at Gihung. It's about approximately 1 hour from our Seoul office. They actually have maybe 2 or 3 more of those units. So the number of architects within a small group studio, that kind of changes year by year. But towards the end of each year, we always try to restructure so that we can adapt to any changes that's coming up on next year. So that's one of our techniques that was observed within our firm.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good point is annually we change the whole team's organization, and then for like the 45 years we set up like the ISO 9000 or some of the international standard. We trying to adapt all, and then compared to other big firm, we have a lot of the opportunity working with a foreign architect. And then we realize, oh, this is kind of the new style. So this company is really like kind of new form, or kind of new, how can we adapt kind of the new next generation? So even the team name trying to change it much more, focusing kind of the advanced team or the future focusing team. And then that kind of all of the employee mind also, we set up like that. So maybe that is one of the good strong point, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very dynamic. I think we have you guys must be on your toes all the time, right? Because
correct.
Keeps, I think maybe that's one of the it's one of the how do you say secret ingredients, you know, to being successful, is in being dynamic and being flexible. I'm just going to take this question, Zia, because it's related actually from Mr. Is it Mr. or Miss Zi Yong? It's actually very similar to my question, but there's the tail end of the question is actually something different, which is asking how many projects do you need in a year in order to sustain your business operations? So it's a very specific question.
3 years before I was in Korea, normally the Korea per year project is around 60 to 70 project is simultaneously work together. But even it's not important the number, because of the like the LCT Haeundae or airport project, is the budget or revenue is really big, and the team is the more than the, I think, SAMOO itself employees, that is around 20 to 30, and then all of the working together more than 100. So, but as I remember, and the 60 to 70 is always simultaneously occurs.
Okay, I'll pass the next. Maybe Z, you can take the next question in the Q&A section.
And there's a question from our moderator, architect Alice Leong, that from the chat, because she noticed that SAMOO has its own virtual reality VR, the department, and it's very impressive. So with the VR technology, there's so much potential for the architects and the designers. Has SAMOO considered to venture into the AR augmented reality? If yes, then in your opinion, how will the AR and the VR change the profession of architecture?
Okay, thank you for the question. The VR and AR department is one of the most interesting areas that we have started to look into. And obviously, because we're relying heavily on BIM, we're always able to utilize the information within BIM to actually augment virtual reality or augmented reality space. We actually have a separate department that is focusing on these new technologies, whether it be BIM or video conference or, for example, 3D modeling, plotting of physical elements. So we have a dedicated department that's actually continuously experimenting on these technologies. Now, one of the advantages of VR AR is that actually during important moments, we can actually have the client experience this space before making further decisions along the design procedures. However, one thing that we would look forward to is obviously having these physical hardwares become much more smaller because they are a little bit big at this moment, and obviously they require a lot of wiring. But one of the interesting areas is that we've been continuously talking with Samsung Electronics and also Samsung SDS. And we kind of foresee the future where these gears will become much more smaller so that they can be easily be utilized. So that is one area that we as architects need to consider as we move along the future.
Okay, thank you. So it's more for the client to experience the design before it's confirm it. Have you been use it to be part of the design process that's in use it and then to change the design, to develop the design into a better solutions?
At this moment, most of our utilization is more geared towards presentations during design procedures. So during important meetings or decision-making points, we utilize the VR so that some of the important VIPs or actual stakeholders can actually experience the place. But we haven't yet tried to utilize it during the design procedure. So that's one of the areas that we will be looking into within the next few years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer. That's very interesting. The other questions that's from our participants, Adeline Chan, she would like to ask, what do you find the most challenging right now as a practicing architect? Is collaborative work the way forward?
To answer that, I think one of the most challenging tasks at this moment is obviously the COVID-19 pandemic and the travel restrictions, because although we utilize these kind of video conference for a day-to-day collaboration, there's always a little bit of a gap between a face-to-face meeting. So hopefully when this pandemic is over, we'll have a better environment for actual engagements with actual clients and actual engineers throughout the world.
But do you think that the collaborative work is the way that forward? I'm just curious that of my question, is SAMOO allowing the staff or the employee to have like part-time work, or they are all full-time? Do you have the flexibility in the employment engagement or employment arrangement with the staff?
Within our HR department, we have flexible options for the engagements. However, for some reason, most of the architects are mostly full-time employees.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Do you find there's any other way of collaborative besides like working with the architects, the fellow architects, the foreign architects? Any other collaborative way that you are on the way of trying? Is there any like possible collaborative with the maybe those that cinematography or yeah in the filming industry, like setting up the AR or VR for the different industry? Have you tried any collaborative with beyond the architecture, yeah, in the profession?
We haven't got into the details of collaborating with anyone else but the client and the architect at this moment. But for example, one area that is very interesting is we're currently in talks with one of the Korean IT companies to experiment on virtual reality spaces. For example, I think it was just 1 or 2 months ago, we had our 45th anniversary, and we actually hosted a twin replica space within a virtual space so that we can experiment those. And I think those links are available on our website as well. It's an interesting place to visit.
Oh, that's good. Then maybe our participants and myself, they would like to check out and explore more. Yeah. Shafiq, maybe I pass it back to you for the other questions by the participants.
Yeah, thank you. Zina. Okay, there's a very interesting question here from a Min Shung Vu. I'll quote for word the question. From your website, it seems there is a part which says investor relations, indicating there are investors in a professional practice firm. So the question is it public listed? Is it a public listed company? Do you have pressures to deliver profit or investor influence over design decisions? It's quite a difficult question here.
To answer those questions, firstly, we are not publicly listed. We are a privately held company within the Samsung Group. And I think the second answer will be depending on who you ask. But for me personally, our firm is more driven by a common goal to provide a better solution to clients. So we do look at the numbers, the financial, how the project is going to cost and what it's going to have effect on the project schedule wise. However, it's not always the profit-driven aspects for our firm. We're more of a target and goal-driven, whether it be developing a better solution sustainable-wise, or whether delivering a project that is very needed within a tight schedule for the client. So we're always looking for new challenges. Okay,
good. I hope that answers the question for Min Shung Vu. I'll move on to the next question. We've got quite a few questions to cover now. I think we've still got time. So the next question I will take actually is from Muhammad Saiful Muhammad Tajuddin. And he is actually referencing the pandemic, and he's asking, is in your office setup and in the post-pandemic era, how do SAMOO adapt and embrace the new norm of social distancing, work from home, online presentation, and remote work coordination within your own organization? He says here to avoid train to Busan nightmare in workplace. Do you intend to convert your studio from open plan to more isolated enclosure with more open, naturally ventilated spaces in the office? I think you've alluded to some answers before this, but maybe specifically to this question.
Right. To be honest, we did look into options of changing the office layout itself. However, at this moment within Korea, the pandemic is being rather controlled at this moment. So we're not looking into any more shiftings of the layouts within the office yet. However, we are continuously working to limit the number of architects who are within the office building at a single given time. For example, at this moment, Our studio number 3 is allocating approximately 40%, 30 to 40% of the architects to be working out of the office. So in that case, they will be working at home. And to enable that, we have developed a lot of additional softwares and protocols that allows the people to actually work at home, but utilizing remote desktop softwares. There's no difference in the screen that you see, whether you're working at the office or at home. So these kind of remote working environment, those are set up by our internal IT department so that we can collaborate regardless of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Actually, as an extension to this question, can I just inject a little bit of my own curiosity again? Because I think the question raises a very fundamental issue here, because in Malaysia and in similar climates, and I think Justin and Mr. Choi can attest to this, right? It's very easy for us to achieve natural ventilation. You just open the window. Yeah, you open the window and you get fresh air and it's naturally ventilated. I don't think that natural ventilation is such an easy solution for you in Korea, because you're either in the depths of winter or you're in the heat of summer. In both instances, I think you're going to have problems with natural ventilation. So, and one of the solutions that has been mooted, I think quite widely, to partial solution to this issue about the pandemic and the spreading of the virus, is to increase the air change within habitable spaces. So like I say, in Malaysia, it's quite straightforward. You open the window and hopefully you get cross ventilation and part of your problem is solved. But how do you address this issue of increased air change and sort of cleansing of the air in the work environment or even in the living environment? How do you address this issue?
To be honest, within Korea, we have 4 climates, and during spring and autumn, it's quite easy to do the natural ventilation as you do in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
But for summer and winter, because of the harsh conditions, we're not able to open any windows.
Yeah.
One of the policies that our firm is deploying is obviously, as you can see, we are obligated to wear masks while we're within the office. That's a common thing. So that's one way to prevent cross-contamination. And we haven't deployed it in our building yet, but some of our clients have started to look into utilizing HEPA filters for the HVAC system as well. And also going a little bit more further would be UV disinfections for some of those filters as well. So those are some of the areas for the upcoming technologies that we could be monitoring. And depending on how the pandemic is being controlled, those might become a little bit more common.
Okay, thank you very much.
Additionally, if I say something, and then compared to the Western country, even the office building is much more focused on all of the fixed window, but a lot of the client side, they want some of the ventilation, not for the fire issue. So not can say 100%, but most of even the office building, we make some operable window every side. Even the SAMOO headquarters is not open to all of the window, but some area should be we just making operation window. But before making operation window, we have some issue. If the window can make open, and then that kind of the hardware, even the winter season can making water drops in. So that kind of hardware or in terms of the weather system, Korea also developed the kind of hardware together.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you, Mr. Choi. Okay, I'm going to take another question before I pass it back to Zee. The next question is from Kushairi Muhammad. He's asking, do you use BIM in all your projects?
To answer that, yes.
Sorry.
We utilize BIM for almost for rare occasions where the BIM is not being able to be utilized. That would be, for example, retrofit of existing buildings or small portion designing of small scale buildings. Other than rare occasions, we try to deploy 100% BIM on all projects. And that's one of the reasons why our firm is currently working towards distributing workstations for all of the 700 architects that we are working on.
Okay. No more questions. Sorry, Z, I took all the questions.
No worries, no worries.
So we've still actually got, if I'm not mistaken, we've got about 20 minutes left on the clock. So I'm not sure if we have any more questions. Do you have any questions for us, maybe, SAMOO?
We don't have any questions, but I think one of the interesting points that you just brought up was the last question, the BIM, because throughout the last few years, we had some mixed experiences and mixed feedbacks from our clients because utilizing BIM, it has a very specific change to the demands of workloads to the from our architectural side, depending on which phase the project is in. So in some cases, I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago, when we proposed to our clients that we're going to utilize BIM and that we won't be submitting any DWGs, CAD works submissions, we actually had some clients coming back to us saying that they prefer the CAD drawings and that they prefer the DWG
All right, okay.
drawings because when we work with BIM, it's okay for us to open and edit and see these kind of modeling data. But a lot of the time, the client doesn't have a workstation, the client doesn't have a Revit, and even when they utilize Navisworks, they're not used to that kind of software. So that was an issue maybe 3-4 years ago. But nowadays, what we're seeing is that a lot of our clients has become a little bit more familiar with these BIM technologies, and they're also trying to see ways to utilize it during the operation and maintenance as well. So the BIM is actually becoming a more of a general aspect that's being integrated to our practice as well.
Yeah, I think in giving us that information, I think you read my mind, Alex, because I was going to ask you, one of the problems or challenges that we face here is that I think that the usage of BIM is not uniform across all participants in the industry. Right. So for example, if the architect uses BIM and if the engineer uses BIM, it may be that the contractor doesn't, right? And like in your case, maybe the client doesn't. So we do have that challenge, I think, and we are also evolving the way that you've evolved over the last 3 to 4 years. So that you've already sort of answered my question. But on the other side of this question is my curiosity again. How are projects commissioned in Korea, right? Because in Malaysia, I think Mr. Choi alluded to something about how clients approach architects, and then you only present a very preliminary design together with a fee quotation. But if you were to broaden that question, I think is we usually are only one of the many consultants that the employer has to take on board, right? So typically, if you're a developer in Malaysia, they would approach the architect, and then they would also need to appoint the various engineers, the mechanical and electrical engineer, the civil and structural engineer, landscape consultant. So what is the model that is actually used in Korea, for example? Does the client, is it the same way that they approach projects in Korea? That they actually...
I think it's a little bit different because in Korea, what happens normally is that the client approaches the architect, and the architect actually works to come up with a total solution and package that includes all of the SMEPs. So we do have projects where the client actually engages directly to either mechanical or electrical, but most of the time, those SMEP disciplines are contracted with the architect, so the architect has a control over all of these disciplines. Now, in regards to BIM, I think it's different depending on who the client would be, because within Korea, for example, for the public projects that are coming out from the procurement office of Korea, they have a roadmap where within the next few years, most of the projects above a certain budget has to be done fully in BIM. So for those projects, we can expect that BIM is a have must for the project. Whereas for the individual private sector, it would depend on the client whether they prefer or not to have the BIM options. And one of the, what was interesting was the Incheon Airport Terminal 2 that you saw. That was one of the first projects for Incheon Airport to actually commission a 100% BIM for not only architecture, but also structural, mechanical, electrical, telecommunications, civil, and all the areas. So it was a very huge, complex project. And there were a lot of disagreements and a lot of arguments whether that's possible or not. But at the end, we did come up with a total package that includes the whole information package. So I think it's a trend that we're moving towards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I think maybe I'll hand over back to Z. I think there are some interesting questions which have popped up. I'll let you take them, Z.
Thank you, Architect Shafiq. Yes, there is a question from Adeline Chan again. Is asking about the most challenging job for one of the most challenging part for our job scope is to deal with the local authority or to deal with the council. So she was curious to know whether Mr. Choi from the SAMOO KL encountered the similar experience. And it's also to the SAMOO Seoul that does architect in Korea has to deal with the local authorities as well? I believe so, right?
Yes, that's a common issue that we deal with. But I think to answer that question from our side, obviously, as mentioned before, communication and collaboration with even the authority is one of the solutions, because even from my experience, when we encounter the local authorities for the first time, they always have some other opinions or perspective towards a project. But then again, once we have a common goal, we're on the same boat, we're on the same goal. So obviously, somewhere within those collaborations and endless communications, we always see a common target and common ground for further movement towards the goal of establishing the project. So that communication and collaboration, even with the local authorities, that is a have must for the architect.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. And the question is also directed to Mr. Choi from SAMOO KL. Do you encounter any experience in dealing with the local authorities especially in Malaysia?
So if the work scope we produced here, in case we have a lot of the good relationship with the local authority, but actually even we settled down here over 3 years. For as you know, the last 2 years the pandemic, so we don't have the fully work scope in here, so not many, but kind of the few architects like the Shafiq Jaman architects or some others, we always just ask to how can the process this kind of procedure. Yeah. Just using the previous our network, and then I will keep trying to do.
Okay, thank you for your sharing. And because there's another further questions from architect Alice Leong, asking like, what is your biggest challenge faced when you handle the projects in Malaysia? That is yeah, I think is to the Mr. Choi. Do you face any apart from the local authorities, do you face any other biggest challenge when you're handling the project in Malaysia?
Here is the big challenging is frankly, we want to get the more open the competition from the selecting phase. So it's not one of the project is not only handled for the SAMOO itself. So definitely we collaborate with the here's local architect together. But a lot of the good case is not we don't know. Already they selected some of the architects. That is a little bit the missing point. So but the local authority is the next we have to figure out. The first phase, how can we select how can we find some of the project in here? Yeah.
How about do you have any interesting stories to share with us? With any, do you face any different office culture when you are in Malaysia and compared to in Korea or in South Korea?
I think in general is very similar, but yeah, it's very similar. But yeah.
If I may, I think an interesting question would be towards Kelly.
Yeah.
In Korea as well. Do you think it's similar or any differences compared to
I
Malaysia?
didn't experience the company culture in Malaysia, so really I don't know what is the difference, but I think the biggest challenge will be the language and the culture for naming, as Korea has a street or ages.
Right, there's the age issue. Actually, an interesting point that Kelly just brought up was, unlike any other countries, one of these, I'm gonna have to say strange because I'm not familiar with this culture as well, but in Korea, they have a very strict culture in regards to age. For example, if someone is older than myself, I have to respect that person. And our language is actually different depending on whether I'm communicating towards an elderly person or a younger person. So those kind of culture is something that we have in Korea. But based upon my personal experience, our firm is a little bit more independent from those kind of cultures compared to other Korean companies. So that's one thing very interesting.
Yeah, I learned that from the Korean drama. Yes.
That is correct.
Yeah, I know that they have a different way of speaking when you talk to the senior. Yeah, but we do not really have that kind of practice. But yeah, we do have a little bit of a difference. Yeah, thank you for the sharings. Yeah. I think we have another question. I think it will be our last question because it's already 5 minutes to 4. From Muhammad Saiful, Muhammad Tajuddin. Talking about the office culture, what is your take between these two schools of thoughts in managing any project? The first is to separate the design and the construction management into the two separate teams. So it's a design team and a project team. Or the second, one team for each project. So they're handling the design and the construction until the end of the project.
That's a very interesting question because I think maybe 8 years ago, our firm was actually structured with a different architectural division handling the design aspect. And then we had a separate studio handling all the design development and construction documentation. So within our firm, we had a period of time where these two were separated. And at this moment, we're kind of mixed together. So there's always pros and cons. I think 8 years ago, when the design studio was separate from the construction documentation studio, they actually had a little bit more freedom in the design as well. But what we experienced was that there was an actual gap and some of discrepancies when the project was handed over to the construction documentation team. So at this moment, our organization is geared more towards combined approach where a single team that has started with the design actually moves on and finalizes the construction documents as well.
I do agree with that direction as well. I mean, in order to have a more comprehensive and then more cohesive in terms of the whole design from beginning until the end. Thank you for all your sharing. I think it's almost 4 p.m. Shafiq, I will pass back to you. Maybe you would like to conclude it.
Thank you, Z. Thank you very much. So I think I feel very sad because this session is now coming to an end. And I really think it's been a very successful first tour in terms of this event. We've had actually 114 attendees, together with us, the panelists, that makes it 122 participants in today's virtual tour. And I think that I have to say a big thank you to SAMOO for all your effort in making this possible and making it real. It's been a very interesting share as far as I'm concerned. And if I can maybe speak on behalf of most of us, I think we were all sort of looking forward to today. Apologies that it's been a little bit protracted as well, but finally we've done it. And I find it enlightening. I hope all the participants found it equally enlightening. And we look forward actually to, maybe you can join us on our subsequent tours, SAMOO, so you can also see and learn how smaller offices in Malaysia operate, for example. So I think I will leave it there. And on behalf of the MYE committee, I might maybe open up to our chairman, our chair lady, Alice, also to have a final word. But from me, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. And it was great talking to you today. Maybe Alice, you might want to have a final word.
Yeah, Shafiq, thank you. Give me 1 second because I've shifted my place to one another. One moment, please. All right. Okay. I truly thank you to SAMOO and also Shafiq. I think I'm so happy for our first virtual tour, which started so greatly. And of course, I've been observing all the participants, and many has been texting me how to log in and all this. So I think it's pretty encouraging. And thank you so much for SAMOO Architects to showcase their offices, and truly impressive as well. I myself have been truly impressive for that. So we can do it more, and hopefully all our PAM members will continue to support us. We promise you that we will bring you around more virtual tour, like I said in the beginning, that national or internationally, be in small or medium and bigger companies as well. So I think this is much more different from the way that last time we used to have so-called the physical tour to the architect office, but there is always a limitation to us to explore into their office spaces. First, I think it's because of the number of people that is constrained. So I think the virtual way is a new way for us actually to move forward for this new norm. Even I foreseen for in future as well. So this is much more impressive. So you can see a lot of spaces from each of the architects' offices as well. So I hope we can carry on this. So thank you so much. And thank you to all the members for willing to spend this precious 2 hours with us. Thank you so much. I hand back to Shafiq to do the closure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our chair lady from the committee. Thanks to Pam, all the behind the scenes people who have helped to make this technically successful. Thank you to all the participants, to actually spare your precious time to listen in on this tour. And, success to everybody, and thank you very much. Have a good rest of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, and stay safe.
Bye.